Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Bold Moves podcast. I'm your host, Angela Merzib, and today I have with me Pranav Kale, and this should be a really interesting and fun conversation. But before we get into it, I want to introduce Pranav. So he helps solo consultants clarify the big idea behind their work so their content leads to real client conversations, not just likes. And he works with experts who are struggling to translate their expertise into a single clear idea. His work is built on one belief: your perspective, not just your expertise, is what makes you stand out. Welcome, Pranav.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for the wonderful intro as well.
Yes, awesome. I just love how clear and concise your positioning is. That's what we're all kind of aiming for, right? I love that. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because I get your emails, I'm on your email list, and there's not a lot of email lists that I stay connected to. So good job for, writing your ideas in a real concise way. A lot of meat to them, but like really short and punchy and to the point.
Thank you. Thank you. Just made my day. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I know we initially met, just so everybody knows, through a program we did on email marketing and email copywriting through, I think we're both really big fans of Jonathan Stark.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you don't know him, he has a really great big idea, right? He
Yeah.
he believes that if you're a consultant or some kind of service professional, that it's really nuts to bill by the hour. So that's his big idea, is to get people out of that and bill, value based or, package pricing and stuff like that. So I love Jonathan Stark. I think we both do. And so,
Mm-hmm.
he's another one I follow because he has a big idea that I connect with, it's just, you just get it and you're like, yes, I agree. And I want to hear more about this. So, um, that's why we have you here to talk about that. And we'll be talking about finding your villain and your big idea and what that all means about in your differentiation strategy. But first, I'd like to get some background about my guests. So, can you walk us through a bit of your journey? Like, what were you doing before this, and what led you to focus on helping people find their big idea?
Yeah. Yeah. So I've been into marketing for more than almost a decade, maybe a little bit more than that. Um, was always confused about what there was this nagging feeling that I had that okay, I have to do something. There is something broken, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I kept hiding. I kept procrastinating, and I felt that okay, there will come a point where when I would have built an enough audience, where I would have a very strong concept, a very strong audience, and that is when I can jump from my full-time job into this. But I think I got to a point where the full-time job just got so frustrating that I was forced into this, into going solo. And then of course then I had to make a choice of what kind of people I want to serve, what
Yeah.
kind of problems I want to solve, and what are my skills that I want to offer, what am I really good at. That
Mhm.
organically led me to this concept of founder branding or founder marketing, because there is a lot of CEOs, founders who want to build their personal brand on specifically on LinkedIn. Some of them also wanted to do it over emails. That's how I got into it. Did that for around 1 year. That's when I actually started working with Jonathan Stark. So he was not my client, but uh, it was like a very complicated relationship where I was working with one of his clients, and I'm from India, right? So English is my second language, and here I was working with my hero Jonathan Stark, who is himself such an amazing writer, and now I'm going to write content which he's going to review. Like this was bizarre, very scary, and
Yeah.
very exciting at the same time. And so there was a ton of feedback because he is a very demanding client in the nicest, kindest way. He expects the best from you. So
Mhm.
within just 2 months, my writing had transformed, and we had a few viral hits on LinkedIn, which is not something we planned, but it just happened. But then by the end of 2024, I realized that okay, I want to do something a little more strategic. I want to solve more upstream problems, because right now I'm competing for attention on LinkedIn using, let's say, the hooks, or I am, let's say, I see people trying to get attention using their fancy thumbnails or email subject lines, and I felt okay, there is something more to it. We don't really need to compete on these aesthetics. We can really compete on the power of a single unifying idea, which is when I just made this mini pivot, so to speak, because I'm still like the done for you ghostwriting arm of the business is still there, but a bulk of my attention is now being taken by this obsession of helping people find their one big idea which they already have, but they just can't see it. So that's
Yeah.
that's what has led me to where I am today. Yeah.
Aha, yeah. So I didn't know you worked with Jonathan Stark. Now I'm a bit jealous, but also like
Oh, I
trial
did. I
by
did.
fire as well. Because I know I can see that he would be pretty demanding, like you say, in a great way. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's just a really excellent business person. So I can see that. Oh, that's so funny. So yeah, so you wanted to solve like a more valuable problem, I guess
Yeah.
you might say, right? Because so much I see a lot of noise like on LinkedIn, especially I'm more active on LinkedIn, I guess, than any other social platform. But yeah, there's always like use these hooks, or these are the viral, words to use, or these are the, and it just seems like gimmicks, right? There's no
Mhm.
like real substance to it. So I feel like what you're trying to do with clients is just kind of get to the meat of it, like to the heart of it, and what is the real substance of what you're selling and offering, and how you're different from everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, none of the people that we admire and respect got famous because of an excellent LinkedIn hook that they wrote, or an excellent email subject line. That's just bizarre. The people that we look up to and admire, we like them because of the power of their ideas. We like Simon Sinek for Start With Why. We like Seth Godin for Purple Cow. We
Yes.
like Jonathan Stark for Hourly Billing Is Nuts. We like Kim Scott for Radical Candor. So we like experts who have a perspective, and it's almost foolish to really compete on expertise, because expertise is sort of a given. Like you're supposed to be expert at your craft, but what the client or the ideal buyer is looking for is more of your perspective, how you actually look at your craft. And that is
Mhm.
when expertise is like number two. That is the second step, but the first step is more of your unique perspective.
Yeah. So how did you find your unique perspective? Because I mean, you help people with that sometimes, and you say most of your clients can't really see it for themselves. You have to draw them out. So it's kind of like, was it just kind of lucky that you found your own, or how did that work?
Well, I'm the biggest hypocrite in the world, because I it took me some time to get there, and I kept on procrastinating. I kept on justifying that, hey, how does it matter? I'm helping my clients find it. How does it matter if I don't have one? But a couple of my friends really pushed me that, hey, if you're going to help your clients do it, you should take the journey yourself. That is when I really started taking it a lot more seriously. I did have some idea, some fuzzy idea, but I had never quite articulated it. So it wasn't easy, and I think it's really hard to do it for your own brand, just because you're
Yes.
very close. It's hard to read a book when it's this close to your face, right? So that's what was happening to me, and you need an external perspective. So I actually worked with my friends. Like, a couple of them are from my mastermind group, then a friend from India, and then they helped me refine it. And that is when I got to it. And the thing that I emerged on was that most of us are focused on the what we want to say. A few of us are focused on how we want to say it, but I think what matters is the who. The who leads to what, which leads to how. So your unique perspective actually leads to your message. And then, okay, if you want to deliver that message on LinkedIn, use a good hook. There's no problem in that, but don't start there. Start a little bit before that. Start with the who, then go to the what, and then go to the how.
I love that. So you're gonna have to write a book that says "Start with Who," and be in competition with Simon Sinek, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying my best to not sound like him, but I think I need to do more work to be able to do that.
Oh, these are all the things that influence us branders and marketers. We're all reading those books, so it's you can't help it, right? It's
Yeah.
part of our ecosystem here. But it's
Exactly.
okay. When you talk about start with who, you're talking about like understanding who your ideal client is, or who, or are we getting into the villain stuff like what we've titled this podcast? Are we talking about who is your villain or who is your ideal client or both?
No, it's the who is the villain. Like, it's your
Okay.
own perspective,
Gotcha.
your own unique perspective, your lens that you have developed after working in the industry for X number of years. So I'm more interested in that.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, the who here does not mean the audience. It means like you as a person, the creator of that big idea or point of view.
Yeah, and that makes sense because that who, that villain could apply to several different audiences, right? Like for instance, Jonathan Stark, he doesn't just work with accountants or whatever. It's like all mostly service professionals, right?
Yeah,
But it doesn't extend to just one vertical type of thing, which kind of helps us solopreneurs. We always fear getting bored of one particular industry, right? That's always our biggest complaint about niching. And I believe different things you can niche in different ways, so it doesn't have
yeah,
to just be a vertical. And I think that's kind of a bit of a boring way to niche. Sorry if anybody's doing that, but there are more creative ways to niche out there, just kind of like what you're doing and kind of like how I've set up my services as well, like doing the VIP day stuff. And so there's different ways to do it. But yeah, I totally get you by starting with who. That makes a lot of sense. And I also agree and was nodding my head when you were talking about we can't see things for ourselves. So it's really interesting that the expert in doing this needed help from his mastermind group as well, right?
yeah,
Because like I talk about it a little differently. I say one of two things. I either say like if you're in the bottle, you can't read the label that's on the outside of the bottle because you're so in it, right? You're in your business, you're in the weeds, you just can't do it. Or it's like doing eye surgery on yourself. You could be the best, most skilled surgeon, you can't do it, right? You need
yeah,
somebody else to point the way. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
totally agree. Um, so we'll talk about your system in a sec here, but just share with our audience. You talked about, you're getting kind of frustrated with your job, and so you shifted into entrepreneurship. What was that shift like? Like, what were the kind of challenges that you faced going from? I'm assuming you were employed, and then like with an employer, and then being a solopreneur. Can you talk about that time period?
Yeah, I remember being in a coffee shop talking to a friend and just brainstorming because I was almost like a reluctant entrepreneur. It was not something that was calculated. It was just me, having to go there, and it did not fit my plan. My plan was, and it's almost sounds a little silly now, but my plan was to first build an audience, be this person who is trusted, and then maybe jump into a bit of coaching and products and bypass the services part altogether. Just have, because you typically have three things that you can offer, right? There is the done for you, there is done with you, and there the do it yourself. So I think my prior experience of working with clients, and I recently wrote about this, that my prior experience was not so great. I always struggled with client work in general. I always felt that, okay, I'm fighting two battles. One battle is helping my client succeed, but the other battle is with the client himself or herself, which
Mhm.
was really draining. So I never got into a situation where I felt, okay, me and my client versus the whole world. It was always a little bit different. So that was bit frustrating. So that was my biggest, I think, mental block, that okay, clients are inherently bad. That was the worldview that I carried. So getting over that,
Yeah.
and was the biggest challenge. But and I did have a few not so great clients in the beginning, to be very honest. So a lot of this goes to luck as well. I wouldn't discount that, but eventually I got to a place where I was happy with who I am serving. So, but yeah, to your question, the main problem, at least at the time, seemed to me that, okay, I this does not fit my plan. I'll again have to sort of do freelancing, more of done for you work.
Yeah.
Don't want to do it. How am I going to do it? But yeah, because I was forced to do it, I found my way through it, and I wouldn't recommend any other path. The way to done with you and do it yourself is only through done for you. You have to do services before you actually graduate to products and training. That is what I truly believe now.
Yes, I agree. And it's a whole different marketing game to market products, I believe, versus
Oh yeah,
services. I think
yeah.
it's just a different game, and yeah, because you're usually selling a cheaper like thing to more people. So whereas done for you, you can work with less clients. But yeah, I think I hear this a lot, that I was a reluctant entrepreneur or just kind of fell into it. I hear that a lot, or something happened, I got laid off. Most of my podcast guests are kind of fit that category, which is interesting to me. Um, so
Yeah.
most haven't, like, we didn't, I like to kind of ask also, like, what were you like as a kid? Because like this was never on my radar either. I mean, I guess I was kind of bossy because I'm the oldest kid. So maybe it was a little bit, but I was Miss Bossy Pants, and I kind of always wanted to do things my way, but you don't learn. Nobody teaches you, like, hey, you can grow up and do this or be your own boss. Nobody ever talks to you about that. How about you? What was it like for you growing up? Was this on your radar?
No, no, never, never.
Yeah.
In fact, I still, I don't know, if I'm being entirely honest, I don't know if a part of me has still embraced or accepted this term of being an entrepreneur. Maybe I cringe a little bit because I've always looked at myself as a craftsperson, and
Mm.
entrepreneurship is only the vehicle for me to be able to do my craft. It's not the other way around. And I know there are people on the other side, which I have no problem with, by the way. But I know people get into the entrepreneurship boat because they want to be an entrepreneur, and what they do is almost secondary to them, but they want to be an entrepreneur. But for me, it's for me and a lot of other people, it's different. I
Mm.
want to do this thing, and the only way I can get to do this thing is by being an entrepreneur or a
Yeah.
solopreneur. Okay, so I will do that. I will do the hard work of finding clients. I will do the hard work of sales. But what I really want to do is my craft.
Yeah.
Is the delivery bit of it. So yeah, nothing in my
Yeah.
kid childhood about it except that uh, maybe I was a little more craft focused than others.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's like sometimes we have these big ideas and we get frustrated in our jobs. Like maybe this was you too, because we can't quite do it the way we want to. And we think our way is, has more merit than the way we're forced to do it. So we just have these big ideas. And so the only way to do that is to do your own thing, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, and there's different phases of like either self-employment or entrepreneurship. I wouldn't say when I first got into this, doing this, like I've been doing this for 18 years, so it's been quite a long time for me to be
Wow.
self-employed. But yeah, wow is the right word. But back in those days, it was just kind of like, well, I don't like what's out there, and so I have the skill, and I can, clients like me, and so why wouldn't I do this thing on my own? But then the more you learn, the more you kind of have to transform from the craft person. It's kind of like that E-Myth book, if you've ever read that, the E-Myth Revisited. You kind of have to transform from the craft person to the manager, and then to the entrepreneur with the big vision, right? Even if you are doing the work as well as everything else, you kind of have to have that bigger vision, which ties into how you help people, right? It's that big vision, that big idea. What is that? What drives you? And what, like, I ask my clients, like, what do you see that's wrong in your industry that you want to change, right? Like, not only what do you stand for, but what do you stand against? Those are the things that attract us to the people that we want to work with, and
Yeah.
that are going to get us to attract the right kind of people. Because you said the same thing, like same problem I had in the beginning was I had not so great clients because I wasn't putting out those values, those ideas, right? I was just like, this is my service, this is what I can do, like blah, 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 boring, 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 same as everybody else, treated like a commodity, kind of like how Jonathan Stark talks about it. When you just charge by the hour, you're a commodity. You're like
Hmm.
the gasoline station, selling gas. Why would I go here versus there? If the price is lower here, I'm going to go here. So it's that same idea. But
Yeah, yeah. I had a conversation with a potential client a few weeks back, and he was very upfront about what his requirement was. So he said that what he wanted was was virality. And because he was working in the tech industry, and for whatever, for his business context, it made sense to have more numbers, more engagement. And I really am not the right person for this, is what I told him. That, if you want to have more depth uh,
Mm.
than width, I am your guy. But if you want more width, it's like I'm really not the best person. So, and he respected that. He liked it.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, these signals that I have been giving, those have worked out for me. Signals
Mm.
that I give on LinkedIn, signals that I give through my emails, or even during a sales call. It helps to give those signals which are certainly attracting the right clients, and pushing away the wrong ones, which has definitely played a big role in my work satisfaction and fulfillment as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. And knowing what you're great at, and being able to just hone in on that, I mean, that's key to, and nobody forgets the person that told them no either, right? That's, I always
Yeah,
say this, but nobody
yeah,
forgets that person that said, no, I'm not this, because that positions you in their mind. Because even if they don't hire you, they might, run into somebody who now needs what you actually do. And they'll go, oh, yeah, I remember this guy. He told me like he doesn't do this, but he does do that. So let me refer you to him. So it's not, you're not really losing out. You're really positioning yourself and doing the work that you love, right? Rather than flying in a thousand different directions, trying to do everything kind of a little bit well, but not great, right? So that never stands out in anybody's mind. So I think that's smart. Um, but let's transition into talking about your framework. So you have a 5-step framework to help people clarify that core message and to find their villain and to just find that big idea. Can you walk us through what those steps are?
sure. Sure. So firstly, just want to like play a homage to my teachers, which who is firstly Tamsin Webster, Jay Kunzo, Billy Broas, Lisa Cron, because I have just this framework is hugely inspired by their work. It is it is not exactly as theirs, because I look at it a little bit differently. I am somewhat inspired by movies when it comes to creating a narrative, and so I draw a lot of inspiration from that as well. And we can get to it uh, maybe when we get to the step of the villain, which I think we can spend more time on that if you want to talk more about the villain bit.
Sure.
But first, yeah, I'll probably just run you through the framework, which is that you first start acknowledging their goals or the status quo that that they have. That, okay, hey, you wanna achieve this, right? Because we can we cannot change what people want or what our audience wants, so we start there. And the villain is not about telling them that, hey, you want the wrong thing, which is what I have been guilty of doing for the longest time. I used to
Yeah.
tell my clients, no, no, that is not the right thing. You should want this thing, and it
Right.
never really works. So the first step is the goal. The second step is the basically the status quo, which means how they're trying to achieve that goal. So I messed up a little bit. The first step is the goal. The second step is the status
Okay.
quo, which is how they're trying to achieve that goal. Again, in this step also, we are merely acknowledging what they have been doing
Mhm.
to achieve that particular goal. There is no judgment here. It's more of empathy. It's more of relationship building and helping them feel seen. They want to look at you as someone who understands what they are all about, which is when we transition to step 3, which is problems with the status quo. That, okay, hey, you want to achieve this and you have been doing that, but the problem with
Mm.
that is the following, right? And then you start elaborating on those problems, and then you go to the villain bit, which is where you say, why you're doing all of this is because of this one underlying belief that you have, because of
Mhm.
which you are doing this, and that is the villain. And then you introduce your big idea that, okay, for you to get out of this, you should embrace this big idea. So that is when we really crystallize everything and suggest a new way forward to our audience. So
Ah,
that could have been abstract, but happy to go into any of the
yeah.
interesting places. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because I guess it's the same in my business. Like people come to me and they think they want a new website or something like that, and I'm like, no, that's not what you actually want. You just haven't positioned yourself right. You haven't done the strategic work to understand your audience, to understand how you're different, to understand how to position yourself in the marketplace that stands out. And that's why your website isn't working, right? So this is a great way to like validate those feelings without talking down to people and being like, no, you shouldn't feel that way. That's
Yeah,
wrong. You should want this other thing, which you don't even might not even have ever heard of, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It's
You need to
yeah,
meet them where they are.
yeah, exactly. And you can't sell something that nobody is not thinking about or has ever heard of, right? They're here and you've got to meet them there and bring them on the journey. So it does kind of sound like you said you watch a lot of movies. It kind of sounds like, the way a movie goes.
Yeah,
Yeah, a little bit, right?
yeah,
Um, because you're fighting that villain together. And once you can identify that villain, that makes the way forward a lot easier. It's like, oh yeah, this is why it's not working. We gotta flip this thing on its head, or whatever we're doing. So yeah, let's dig into this framework a little bit.
hmm,
Maybe walk me through. We don't have to give details or anything like that if there's confidential stuff you don't want to share, but I'd love to hear like a situation where maybe because you said a lot of your clients don't think they have anything that's different or they don't think they have a big idea. So maybe walk us through like a surprising moment where you helped a client figure that out and how that
yeah.
actually worked.
So before I answer that directly, maybe I'll just take a step back and actually dig into one of the movies, which is because I do want to make it clear that the villain is not really the villain is not really the job to be done, which is what a lot of people confuse it with. Like for example, if you are someone who helps your clients get more leads, not having leads is not really the villain. That is
Mm,
just like, that is everyone is saying that. That is not surprising, and the villain should be a little bit surprising. It should catch you
okay.
off guard. So it's not really, if you are someone who helps clients lose weight, obesity or more weight or being overweight is not the villain. The villain is a belief. The villain is the internal belief that they have been operating with. So one of my favorite movies is Kung Fu Panda. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have an
You have.
8-year-old, so of course I've seen it.
Awesome, cool. I'm glad because uh, yeah, it's easier to explain using that movie. So if you remember, to whatever degree you recollect or remember the movie, there is this overweight panda who finds himself chosen to be the dragon warrior, and he is a total misfit. He has never trained for kung fu in his entire life. He is struggling. He's trying his best, but he's really struggling. His teacher has sort of given up on him. The other dragon warriors also have given up on him, and uh, there is this evil snow leopard Tai Lung who is going to destroy the whole world, and Po has to fight him, but Po is just not being able to do it because of the reasons I just mentioned. But
Yep.
there are two things that happen in the movie. The first thing that happens is there's a dragon scroll which Tai Lung is after. It's supposed to be extremely powerful. It's supposed to have like a secret which will make you invincible. uh, and so when Poe finds that scroll and he opens that scroll, it's blank, and he's surprised. Why is it blank? There's supposed to be like some magical words or something that will give me all the power, but it's blank, and all he can see is his own reflection. It's that blank. And then there is a in the next 5 to 10 minutes he meets his father, and his father happens to be a crane, which is very funny. But this crane is running a Chinese restaurant, and his father has always said that, okay, I have a secret recipe because of which our business works, because of which people love the food. And then in after that encounter, he just says, Po, can I tell you a secret? There is no secret recipe. It's always been like that. And that's when it clicks for Po that, oh, I have been operating under this wrong belief that I have to be
Mm,
someone else, that I have to be like those other dragon warriors. But I know that I can be my best only when I embrace all my strengths. If I when I embrace all my imperfections, if I'm really myself,
Mm.
that's when I can fight Thailand. That is the aha moment that we are looking to give as soloists. That hey, you're operating under a wrong belief. If we can change that, then you're gonna be able to be that Po and actually beat Thailand.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. So it should be surprising and something you haven't really been able to figure out on your own, probably, right? So, if it's weight loss, maybe it's mindset, or the way you talk to yourself is, yeah. So
Yeah,
I can really see how that makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And
Um,
to get to
Go
the
ahead.
second part of your question, which is to give
Yeah.
you an example, right? So I will share a client example to whatever degree I can. Uh,
Yeah.
I was working with this one person who helps founders with stress management, and we were going back and forth. And what I like to do in this exercise is sort of build a bridge between two worlds: what the client wants to say, at the same time what the audience wants to hear. Because it cannot just be one; it has got to be true to both of them,
Mm.
which is the hard part. And then
Mhm.
we did a lot of digging. My process is quite elaborate. It's also uncomfortable because it needs some, it's like peeling an onion. You have to keep on going layer after layer within to the center. And so we looked at a few client stories. We looked at the real data of what is happening. We also looked at the client's own perspective. And what we realized was that my client really believes that stress is something that we can use as to our advantage, or stress is actually something that gives us power. And entrepreneurs, in fact, are looking for any competitive advantage that they can get to be able to thrive, to be able to thrive in the business that they're doing. So
Mhm.
we had this intensive process, and then we jump on a call, and I said, you know what, maybe what you're trying to say is that stress is your superpower, or something to that effect. And my client's eyes just popped up, because that was exactly what he has been trying to say for the longest time. And that's when we got there. And now that can be translated into multiple areas. Maybe if he writes a book, that will be the
Mm.
title of his book. He can start a podcast on that topic. That is his premise that he can own, because it's proven by data from his
Mm.
past clients. It's also what he really believes in. So it's sort of building a bridge between both these worlds.
I see. And it is surprising because it sounds backwards, right? Like, oh, we're supposed to do everything we can to eliminate stress. Why would we want the stress? So that makes me want to makes me curious to look into that. Like, oh, let's see what he
Yeah,
has to say about that, right? It draws people in
yeah.
who are under stress and who are entrepreneurs. It's like, well, wait a minute, can I actually use this to my what is he talking about? This seems so backwards. So it really creates that curiosity in people.
And the villain here is the belief that I need to get rid of stress, or stress is
Yeah.
bad. That is the
Huh.
belief that his clients have been operating in, because the way they have been, the again, the status quo, the things that they have been doing to get rid of stress, which is talk
Yeah.
to their spouse, do some stress release techniques. All of it is rejecting stress. All of it is to say that, okay, I do not want stress. But he's saying that, okay, the more you resist it, the more
Mm.
it comes to you. So that is the essence of what we are now trying to build together.
And you're saying he kind of already knew this, but he didn't. Did he? Was it more a matter of like, I don't think this is a marketable idea, or did he just kind of get lost in this process and he didn't really wasn't able to kind of call it out on its own for what it was? Or why do you think the idea was there and he was using it all along, but he wasn't able to call it to the foreground? Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it again goes back to like just being very close
Mm.
to your expertise, and he wouldn't have been able to articulate it that way. It wasn't really a question of courage or confidence that, hey, I have this idea but I need to run
Okay.
with it. It was a combination of, I have this hazy thoughts flying around, I need something that brings them together. and then I want to be able to convey these thoughts to my audience as well. How do I do all of that? So even though we
Right.
are doing it, we still fail to see it. It's really tricky. And yeah, that's what happened since we worked together.
Okay. Okay. It kind of sounds like you do some work, like to ask questions about both what he believes and what his audience believes, and you're trying to find that common ground. Is that kind of
Yes.
the first step?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes. There is a ton of time we spend on audience research as well, which is
Okay.
where I try to get deep into their clients, into my clients, and try to figure out what problem do they have, why did they start working with my client. So there is reality to it. It's not all inside my client's head, because then that can be very abstract. But it is,
Yeah.
so we do a lot of work in trying to understand the audience, and then also trying to understand my client's perspective. So yeah, it is
Mhm.
definitely the way you put it.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, and it makes sense that they would need somebody else to guide them through that. Would you say, like, I know you talked about when you first started out as a solo consultant that you were kind of trying to find your path. I think that's true for most people, not maybe not everybody, but most of us. We kind of have this vague idea of like what our skill set is, so we're going to go out and sell it, and to anyone for the moment, who bites at our services,
Yeah.
which can be good or bad. Like you say, there's luck involved. You get good clients, sometimes you don't get good clients because you're not really actively like vetting them at the beginning. Would you say your process is more geared towards consultants and soloists that have some data, like for who their clients and why they come to them, and not so much for people starting out? Or could someone starting out use your system as well with some success?
That's a very good question. It's definitely more suited if you have some case studies, some success stories in the past. But I do want to be honest and transparent and say that even when with those kind of clients, it's never really done and dusted. It's always that, okay, this is a hypothesis, this is sort of like the first version 1.0 that we have. So think of it
Mm-hmm.
like a software is never done. There's always 1.0, then the next version is 1.1, then 1.2. And so we tend to think of the big idea as like that as well. So maybe the first version is really bad, but it is never in the opposite direction. You will never wake up in the morning, like on Monday you say that, okay, you believe X, and then on Tuesday you said, no, that is not what I believe, I believe something entirely opposite. That never really happens. It's
Right.
just the direction that you have to fine tune. You're still flying in the same direction, you just have to
Right.
fix the angles a little bit. So I do believe that even if you're starting out, it's good to have a hypothesis and then
Mm.
commit to it, get some data, and then course correct along the way.
Oh, I love that. And I love how you mentioned it's like a software update, which is perfect because, we're all used to that. And of course, even a big company like Apple, they they have bugs to fix too, right? So
Exactly. Yeah.
why should we be expected to be better than Apple, right?
Yeah.
Um, but even Apple, they had their big idea when they started out as just a little dinky company, right? The whole think different thing, the whole,
Yeah.
we're for the rebels, we're for the people who do things differently. And they had that whole like manifesto, which I love writing manifestos for people. It's like a bold mission statement, right? So you
Yeah.
can always think about those things like, what do I believe in? What do I stand against? What do I stand for? What do I love? Or all these things, these are kind of ingrained into us. They're not really, like you say, going to change, but they might get refined over time, but
Yeah.
not completely change. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, even if you're starting out, you can start thinking about these things and like test them out, right? That's the whole thing, is like test out that idea. Nothing's, especially with the internet these days, like nothing, we don't have to print 1,000 brochures anymore. We can just
Exactly.
put an idea up on a website, test it out, see who comes to it, see what the reaction is, and if it's not what we're intending to
Yeah.
come to us, then we change it, right? So it's super easy to do
I think
these
the
days.
the 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 one advice that I would have is start selling. Start selling immediately,
Yeah,
because when you start to sell, that is when you're on the hook. That is when
yeah,
you have to make things work. Otherwise, you're lost in your own Google documents, which is
Mm.
not ideal. You keep on iterating, trying to figure out that, and it happens to everyone. It's not that
Yeah.
you get to a certain stage when it stops happening to you. No, it's a lifelong battle. So put yourself on the hook, put yourself at a little bit of risk and try selling something, because that's when you'll get real feedback. I mean, your big
Mhm.
idea can sound good in your head, but if no one's buying, then you sort of need to, you don't need to change it, but you need to change the articulation of it, which is the work that needs to be done to be able to make a sale.
Yep, I agree. There's no sense in just being in that vacuum, in that echo chamber. You got to get out there and sell. And when you do sell, keep your notes. Like if you have sales calls, those are super valuable. Like what people say to you and the words they use and the language they use. Like keep those sales calls. And now with ChatGPT, you can just run all those notes through it. It's really good at finding patterns, like pattern recognition, right? So it can just
Yeah.
in a second, like do that, all that hard work that you used to have to do manually yourself. It can do it for you. And then you can really find some golden nuggets in there. Um, that's what I would do anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. So what would you say the first step is for someone who's really struggling with this idea? I mean, yes, hire you, but if they're just really wanting to like even come to you with some kind of sense of like a starting point, what would you say the first step they should take would be?
I think you should lean into your frustration. You should lean into your anger, because there is something that is making you uncomfortable, which you want to fix. You spoke about Steve Jobs. There was something broken, something that was making him uncomfortable, which he wanted to fix. And so we need to lean into that frustration. We need to lean into our curiosity. And the way to clarity typically comes from only two to three things. The first is content creation and writing, because when you start creating content, when you start putting out content, whether it's social, YouTube, podcast, whatever it is, your idea will keep on getting refined, because you're just having more conversations on it, and you're building on top of it. So again, it doesn't have to be like a 7-year project. It can just be a podcast that you launch for whatever 30 episodes, or if you try a daily email for whatever 1 month, 3 months. But content creation really clarifies your thinking. So
Mm,
rant about it, be angry. You don't have to publish everything. Just be angry, just be frustrated. Talk about what is broken. Talk about what should the new world look like. Talk about the things that frustrate you about your clients or potential clients. What are they doing wrong? Start with that, because as you keep on publishing that, it eventually leads to something a lot more articulate, a lot more precise, and then finally towards the crisp positioning, because positioning is something that comes later. It doesn't come earlier. I know there is like some there is some advice that, okay, we need to choose and pick from day one. I don't think so. For people like us who are driven by our frustrations and we have a particular vision for the world, we need to start with our frustrations, and positioning is more of a byproduct. That, okay, but you
mm,
see with whom it is resonating, and
yeah.
then after a while a tagline emerges and the niche emerges and the problem
Mm.
emerges. So long answer to say that, okay, just take your frustrations and anger seriously.
Yeah, and I think it's also about starting with the macro and then getting more micro. So I think we tend to want to do it backwards. Like we want our positioning nailed right now and we want to know exactly what we're saying, but like you say, it takes some practice sometimes to just start out here. What's that big thing that bugs you? Like whether it's your industry or the way your clients are treated or something. Like there's some reason you got into doing this and you're probably doing it a little bit differently than most people in your industry. There's probably some reason that got you doing your own thing. So what is that and what bugs you about it? And I think you're right. Writing content and just getting in the practice of that helps you really articulate that really well. Or even doing a podcast like this one, a solo podcast, right? To just speak about what it is that's actually burning you up inside, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Is a great way to just refine what you actually think about it. Because I think sometimes we think in generalities, but we don't really get very specific about it. And it's clear in our own mind, but then when we try to articulate, it's not very clear when it comes out to our audience. So
Yeah.
awesome. Awesome. Well, awesome advice today. I love it. I love all of it. I'm here for it all. I want to show your website here, which is super easy. It's just your name. Yay. So, where else can people find you and connect with you online and support what you're doing?
Yeah. Firstly, like before we wrap up, I just want to thank you because you have just been so professional in from day one, like sending me these emails and just prepping me. That has been so awesome. uh,
Oh,
like seriously, I admire that, and I'm not just saying it for the sake of. So thank you for creating this experience for me. uh,
awesome.
Website is a good place. You can sign up for my email list. I respond to each and every email, so that is there. I'm also active on LinkedIn. That's a channel that I do take seriously. I sort of have a love hate relationship with it, but right now I'm in the love phase, so I am on LinkedIn, and
Okay.
you can find me there. So yeah, those two are the areas where you can just get to know more about me.
That's awesome. And yeah, do sign up for his email list. They're really great. They're really quick reads, but they got a lot of substance to them. So I really enjoy them. And I think you'll level up your writing if you do sign up. There's a lot of good stuff in there. And thank you for sharing your thoughts about my process. So everything that I do with my brand, as you know, we all should think about the user experience, right? So I love hearing what it's like on the other side of this. I want it to be easy peasy for my guests because you know you are giving up an hour of your time. I know it's really late where you are, so thank you for coming so late. That'd be past my bedtime, but I'm an early bird, so
My
it's
pleasure.
really great to hear that. So thank you for joining me today and for sharing all your expertise and your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.